Hey y'all, it's your girl Dia Direct, and welcome back to the Superpower Her podcast. Listen, you know this is where women of power and women with powerful stories testify. But today, I'm not just talking to a powerful woman, I'm talking to my very, very dear friend. And we're talking about going from a storm to taking life by storm. I can't wait for you to meet Miss Monique Boyd. Hey y'all, it's your girl Dia Direct. Welcome back to the Superpower Podcast. Hey y'all, it's your girl Dia Direct, and this is the Superpower Podcast, where women of power and women with powerful stories testify. Welcome. Let me tell you something. Now, today's show is going to be the show of shows for me. Now, mind you, we've been trying to do this show for, 5-6 months. Feels like a year. You would think I was talking to a celebrity. Well, she kind of is in my mind. I finally get the chance to talk to my very first friend in Dallas, Miss Monique Boyd, who is now a big-time executive at the Star, and she's decided to make time for me. Well, hello, Monique.
Hi, Dia.
So before we get all into it, and we will, what is your official title?
My official title is I'm the general manager for Legends Hospitality at the Star, which is the home of the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay.
It's the world headquarters.
Right. Wow. Okay. Yes. So now, what does that all mean?
Well, I'm in my 13th football season. So when somebody asks how long have you been there, you do football seasons versus years. So this would be the start of my 13th football season. So in context, to give you kind of how I got here, I spent my first 7 years as director of events at AT&T Stadium. So at the stadium, I did all game day catering, all 7 clubs, all of our, behind the scenes media, the players, visiting team, on top of 400 events a year. So I did that, and I managed all of our special events and catering at the stadium, and then, which is with Legends. So Legends is a hospitality company, and the Cowboys have part ownership in the company. So that kind of gives you a little context. And then in 2020, during COVID, I actually got a really great opportunity to go to California, which is my hometown, and to Pasadena. And they gave me the opportunity to open up SoFi Stadium in March of 2020, March 1st. So everybody knows what happened about March 15th of 2020. So I had the opportunity to open up SoFi Stadium during COVID, and with no fans in the stadium the first year. We went through the construction, no fans, and then did Super Bowl with Snoop and the whole West Coast situation.
West Side.
Right. But you know what? Y'all knew we say Snoop because he a little canceled. But anyway, with Dre. And did Super Bowl in the next year, and then I got a text message from somebody that is very near to me, Chad Estes with the Dallas Cowboys, sent me a text, and he knew that I was going through a little career transition. I was in my 10th year with the company and was thinking about leaving, and he said, hey, what is X amount company offering you? It's time to come home and be back with us. Just like that. I mean, I was at a gas station. I looked at this text message because I was ready. I was like, I'm about to change jobs. I had already settled that I was going to stay in California. I was really happy. My friends are there, but I just really needed something professionally because it just wasn't it. And sure enough, when I got the text message and I called him, and he told me that the Star, they were going to be looking for a new general manager. And I helped open the building when it opened up 9 years ago. And I said yes. I mean, I don't know how you get a call from him and you say no. And it was really one of the best decisions that ever happened. So as general manager, I actually oversee all of our hospitality, all of our concessions for the Ford Center. We actually do events out on the plaza. We do some, dine arounds and things in the Star District. But we also do tours throughout the building as well, and all of our private events and catering. So we do about 1,000 events a year, so whether it's a business meeting, a gala, something social or what have you. And so I manage a team of about 200 individuals that are there that are just really there to make sure you have a great experience when you get to Frisco.
And you do some big stuff too. Like I remember when the draft pick that's from my hometown, Connecticut, was
Oh yeah,
there.
we did. Yeah, you actually gave us some insight on that. Good looking out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. So we did the draft pick, and we football. We needed. Oh, I don't remember what his name was. It's is it Tyler or Taylor?
Tyler.
Yeah, because you had said it was some type of pizza that they like in
Yes, because
Connecticut.
New Haven is the capital of pizza.
Yeah,
Thank you very
well,
much.
nobody knew. Yeah, sorry, the Dallas people didn't know that, but I was in a meeting, and you sent me like, oh yeah, people from New Haven like this kind of pizza, and I was talking to Chef because I do oversee all the culinary team too, and I said, hey Chef, there's some pizza from New Haven, and then he did it when him and his when Tyler and his family came, and they noticed that. So good looking out.
Yeah,
that's all.
That's what I do.
Right.
So let me ask you this: so how many people do you oversee, and what's your annual budget look like?
From staffing wise, we're about 170 some odd people, plus or minus, overall. So that's all of culinary, everything that's primarily in the kitchen, all the tour staff, all of our concessions, all of our private event and sales team as well. My leadership team is about 16 people those are all director level that kind of manage their own departments. I oversee all the financial accounting as well too. From an annual basis, each one of our departments actually have a goal, but anywhere between like $17 to $18 million a year.
Awesome. Now, Monique, you are really living the dream that you've always, I don't even know if you dreamt this big of a dream for yourself, but I do recall, like, I always had girlfriends who were like sports girls.
Yeah.
And you were one of them.
Yeah.
And you've always loved sports, to the point where you took almost any job to get into this industry. So now that we kind of know the high of where you are, talk to me a little bit about the lows and the challenges. Let's start with the professional, and then we'll kind of deal with the personal, because, this is a podcast where women of power and women with powerful stories testify. And so I want to really get a sense from you of your journey. People see you now, flashy, and
I know you ain't talking about being flashy.
Listen, I'm just saying.
I mean, flashy. Okay, flashy is as flashy does.
Well, okay, and, we're in the circle,
right? Exactly.
But we've seen each other's highs and lows, right? Like, personally and professionally, we've seen what life looks like. And so I think it's important to let people in on that a little bit, because when people only see the highs and they're in the middle of their low, achievement often seems and feels insurmountable.
Right.
Have you ever had that experience?
It's funny that you say that, because I have a really good friend that I grew up with, and he had to do a speech for me when I did this magazine cover. And
I'm sorry, you did what?
Whatever. And and he said, you see her glory, but I know her story.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in context, because you're right, a lot of people will normally walk into an office, or they'll see me and they'll think, oh my God, this is kind of how it always has been. But I'm probably just as basic and, regular and down to earth, and listen to a little bit of rap music on my way to work, as like a lot of people don't think. And I try to think I'm a little cool, but my daughter's like, you're really not in their generation anymore. But I didn't always start off in the industry. I mean, I was 36 when I started. And so a lot of times when I really tell people about...
So you saying you made a career change, 36?
I made a career change. And I said, my biggest thing that I will tell somebody is that broken crayons will still color. And that's kind of what I live by. But, in college, I majored in journalism. I thought I was going to write, but at the time when I graduated from college, I was working. And so, of course, we chased the money. I had just bought a new car and, all these things. And I started going down a pathway of things that I may not have wanted to do. I was in HR, I was in customer service management, but I was always the one person that volunteered to plan all the events. So I was like, oh, can I help with the Christmas party? Can I do what have you? And then, fast forward in 2000, I had what was called a thyroid storm. And this thyroid storm was, I've had a thyroid condition that was diagnosed when I was about 25, give or take. And a thyroid storm is basically when your whole body just shuts down. Like it was only 10% of the people who have this illness survive. And I haven't taken thyroid medication, but I was going through a little stressful time in my life, and my whole organs shut down. I started.
How old were you at this time?
I should have been about maybe like 32, give or take. I had a 3-year-old. I had just moved to Dallas. I was going through it. I had went through a divorce primarily already, but just a lot of things were just off balance for me. And when I started being really agitated, which they thought were panic attacks, and it just really kind of it just went berserk. Like there's a whole period that I don't really remember, other than people have to kind of tell me what happened. But one day I went from, my birthday is in August. I don't remember what happened to me.
Of course
from
it is,
August
because
to
we're Leo
November.
girls.
Exactly. But I started having seizures, and then I was in a coma and I don't really, maybe about a week or so, give or take. But I do know that they did have people come over to pray, because they did not think that I was going to make it. And it's one thing if people ask me, like, do I remember anything? I just remember that maybe I was asleep for a long time and crying a lot, because I really missed my daughter, and at the time, her being so little. So, I was lucky enough that coming out of this thyroid storm, I had to most definitely the care of my family. I spent some time down in Arkansas with my dad and my family were at the time. And I had a girlfriend that I grew up with in California, Pam, and she wanted to come and see me. But it really made more sense for me to come see her. And at the time, I had really just started to learn. I couldn't really talk. I was doing a lot of gibberish. It was crazy, because my daughter Riley and we were separated for almost 3 months. And she had to go live with her dad when I was sick. And when she saw me, she cried. She was scared, because I was really thin, but it's the one thing, I think, the connection that you have, that she knew who I was, and and I knew obviously she was, but she used to talk for me, because at the time I was still taking a lot of medicine for my seizure. I think it was called Dilantin, where like I could gibber a little bit better in the morning, but as your brain, I guess, kind of gets going throughout the day, I knew what I was trying to say, but I just couldn't really get it out. And I remember the one word that I used to cry, it was church. And I have it written down on a piece of paper, because I couldn't really figure out what the letters were for that. And usually most people will see me now and they always say, you have really nice handwriting. I couldn't even write anything. It was just a lot of gibber. So at the time when Pam sends his ticket, it was me and Riley got on the plane, and she used to speak for me. Like I could say something to her, and at 3 she could repeat it back. And we both know how she gets paid to talk now. And so I was only supposed to be in California maybe a couple of weeks, and I ended up staying almost a year and a half. And I had really just the grace of like a lot of my girlfriends that I stayed with Pam, I stayed with Janelle. I had to learn how to drive. And at the time, I had got a job. I finagled my way to get this job, and I knew I was not ready to go back to work, because my memory was really bad. Now I started to be able to talk, and in California, I was able to get, which a lot of people don't know, like I was on assistance. I actually still keep my food stamp card and my Medi-Cal card in my drawer, because a lot of times, I never get to a point where I've gotten so escalated I can't remember what really happened. And at the time,
so you keep your assistance card.
I do,
to remind you
100%. Yeah, I mean, because at this point, I will say this, when I say if I'm worried about something now, I've been to a point where I had nowhere to live. I had a daughter. I had friends that let me sleep. I slept in the twin bed with my daughter for almost a year and a half, because and for the grace of people who loved me like I was their family, that allowed me to live with them. And so when I get to a point when I go home and I live in a, I've been living in a high rise, and there's a concierge down at the bottom of the building. Number one, I worked for it. I earn it. But I also have been to a point where I can appreciate it, because I've been through a lot. I mean, I didn't grow up in a family where I came from money or I came from certain things. So I most definitely think that's how I lead with empathy, because I know specifically where I started, where I've been, and how hard it has been for me to get here. So, fast forward, it was just really crazy, because once I started working in California, I got fired from my first job, because, I would call Janelle on the phone, one of my girlfriends, and I'm like, I think I was selling like printing or something. I didn't know what the people were saying on that phone. I would just write the numbers down, and they were like, I'm going in the field, and I would go to the movies and sit there and cry, because I'm like, they gonna catch up with me because somebody gonna figure out
You're a fraud.
that I don't know what's happening. But I didn't get disability for almost like 6 months, and I needed to work. I had to make money. And it was crazy because the one thing I did know is when I was sick, my godmother, may she rest in peace, took me to the Social Security office because they were trying to see if I was going to be able to get benefits. Because at the time, nobody, when you go in a coma, you can't speak, and there's not really a reason for whatever my state of mind is. Maybe I was never going to be able to come back. And so the person at the Social Security office told my godmother that I was not going to get any benefits because how they rated me as being a college graduate, that the highest job that I would probably get is I could be a Walmart greeter.
What?
Yeah. And so, at the time, okay, so, fast forward when I started.
Were you comprehending all of this?
When somebody would tell me, yeah, I mean, I was really in the beginning when I started to kind of recover. So I had to wait on benefits because when I got sick, I was here in Texas. So my medical insurance is a little tricky. So I had to get on Medi-Cal in California, and I was on a wait list for therapy. And when I went to go see someone, they said that start reading children's books and People magazine. And that's how I started to read and talk again. I never went to physical therapy because I was on a wait list because I had Medi-Cal. So, I mean, in essence of me really having people to help me, like a lot of my girlfriend Kimberly did hair. I would go sit in the hair salon with her when I wasn't working. And she, knowing if we're growing up together, she was screaming at me like, answer me. And I'm like, well, okay, because, if you all knew me, if they knew me pre-coma, because you met me post-coma. So if you knew me then, you knew how I was. And I was always a go-getter to go do something. And then when you see me have half a shell of myself, it's like, okay, are you there?
Let me stop there for a second, because when people are going through, it's really hard for your loved ones.
Oh, yeah.
To see you not being yourself as they knew you. And so that what you just described sounds insensitive, but having lived life, I understand that they're also grieving you as they knew you. And so, without training or real understanding, a lot of times people will be insensitive or impatient, or they'll expect you to be, they want you back, but they don't know what to do to get you back. So I just want to say that note, because I'm sure there are people who are going through things right now. There may be people in your life who aren't being as sensitive as they could be. And a lot of times they don't know how to be. And it's not that they want to be insensitive to you. It's that they're also going through the loss of you as they once knew you.
Yeah, yeah. And I think people just expect it because, I didn't live in California anymore. So when people would see me, they were like, hey, how are you doing? And when I couldn't really respond back, and I'm like, okay, because even now, we joke a little bit sometimes about, oh, I've been in a coma, but if I do see you sometime, and it depending on it, sometimes it has to trigger a little bit because I'm sure there's still a little memory loss or something that's primarily there. But
how long were you going to coma, Monique?
I think it was about a week or so. I would have to give it, and it might have been longer. I remember there was a journal that a calendar that my aunt kept, where they would kind of X the days. So I believe it was maybe a week plus, maybe a little more.
And where were you living when you were in coma?
In Arkansas. I went to go see my dad. Because I got sick here in Dallas. My dad came to get me, and I started having seizures when I was there. My aunt was the nurse in Lake Village at a hospital. And when they admitted me to the hospital, of course, I was a relative of somebody that was really dear to them. And apparently, when I got really sick, they had to airlift me to a hospital in Pine Bluff somewhere. And so there was a lot of specialists and things that were there, because initially when I got sick in the beginning, before I started having the seizures, that my aunt had to call the hospital I was out here and tell them that they needed to check my thyroid levels. And apparently they were like dangerous levels. And so it wasn't, they thought I was having a mental breakdown, but it was that I was actually going through this thyroid storm, or the start of it. So
now, in terms of a mental breakdown, was there a connection to what you were going through emotionally that may have triggered what happened to you physically?
Probably. I mean,
were you stressed out?
There was a lot of stress in my life at the time, from a personal standpoint of, it's just hard being a single mom. And, just at the time I was, and At the time, I was dating someone who was not really treating me very fairly. Actually, you know what? I guess we're on a podcast, right? I mean, if I had to say it, I mean, I was dating somebody who got married, and I was his girlfriend, and he got married. I was like, oh, I had actually packed his tuxedo because he told me he was going to like a conference or something like that, or when initially, and it was the whole thing, and that wasn't just it. I think it was just a lot of stress in general.
No, finish that story.
Yeah.
You can't just bypass that.
Oh Lord! I mean, you're trying to make me remember.
You cannot just bypass that.
But after I moved to Dallas, after I got divorced, I think Riley was maybe one when we moved here. Then a couple of months into living here, I meet somebody who appeared to be like totally what opposite of you go through a divorce and you're really vulnerable to meet somebody that was hell. I know because you meet the one and when you first get here. We got some stories to tell on that one.
I told you we know each other's business.
Yeah, you
for
had
real.
a whole name combined for the one you had met, but I met somebody that was here. He was single dad, fell in love with his amazing daughter that is still, close to me now. And I tried to be opposite of everything I was when I was somebody's wife, because you learn from your mistakes, things like that, right? And so, that Joker, he was the joke. He was one, had me all impressed, and but it was funny. My daughter did not like him.
We know. The kids know.
She was like 2 or 3.
The kids know.
She would not stay in a room with that poor man. She would, it was like, it was nothing that he could do. But
she didn't feel safe. Her spirit did not feel safe for him.
Whatever vibe he was vibing wasn't on hers. And luckily, his daughter was just amazing. And so we were close as the 3 girls or what have you. But he was out here doing his thing. And then one day, I was actually, we had dated maybe about a year, maybe 2. I can't remember. I was at work. I literally had, he would travel a little bit for work, and she started kind of acting out a little bit, and I was at the house packing his tuxedo, and
because you thought he was going to a wedding.
Well, no, at first when he said he was going to go out of town, I thought he told me it was a wedding, and then when I packed his tuxedo, I said, what is this for? He said, I'm getting married. I was like, yeah, okay, and I left, because who would have thought that if you dating? Like, hello. I can't believe you making me tell this damn
I didn't
story.
make you tell that story. You started it.
No,
I'm just finishing it. You can't start stuff like that and then not finish it.
You pro.
Did not.
You pro.
Just it's what I do, but go ahead.
And I was at work. It was my daughter's birthday, and I called
Not her birthday.
I called his sister may have called me or something, and I said something like I was getting a cake for Riley's birthday, and she said, have you talked to my brother? I said, yeah, girl, he had her to tell me he was getting married. He's out of town this weekend. And she said, my sisters and I wonder what you thought about that. And I was like, and okay. And at the time, my grandmother had died like that week before. This situation had happened. I was, financially, it was crazy. I was working somewhere that I wasn't really happy. And I'm trying to diet to lose weight, just all of that. And I think your whole body just like shut down. So I don't want to say it was because of the breakup that I went to this coma, but it was a lot of pressure of what things that were happening.
Monique, you didn't see here. Let me listen. Hold on. First of all, this is what we do because we combine all this stuff together. You just described one trauma after another.
That was traumatizing.
Your grandmother died.
Yeah.
You're still dealing with financial stuff. You're dealing with the stress of a new life with your young child.
Yeah.
Then the relationship stuff. And you dieting, taking diet pills,
yeah,
and then you're at a job that you're not happy at.
Yeah.
All those things are impacting you mentally, emotionally, and physically, but we are strong until we're not.
Yeah.
Right? And so a lot of times when you won't give yourself a break, your body will.
Look at you.
Your body will respond.
It did. And at the time too, you got to take your thyroid medicine. You have to really kind of take care of yourself. And, what do we know about mental health and all the things, 20 some odd years ago too. And it was crazy because at the time, as women, and you crying and it was just insane. Like, I don't even know.
I feel overwhelmed just thinking about that right now.
And it's
like,
crazy.
it's like, take a beat. We just move and we just go on to the next thing. Like, it's like, Whoa, take that in for a second.
Yeah, I mean,
That was
it's one
a
thing.
lot.
It's one thing you process because I had to reprocess the divorce or whatever, and then my daughter's childhood, with the going back and forth with which with my ex whatever wasn't the most pleasant, and so who needed this happen? Nobody wanted the next relationship to be this, and
The
then
ninja went and got married.
and then but I mean, if we don't need to be broadcasting this because even though he was married. But he would still call it. I'm, with the stories and this was not the mistake and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. So,
Wow.
and so emotionally, when you putting things out there and, you carrying that because it was just a
You're
lot.
carrying that.
Yeah. And so quite frankly, fast forward, this whole situation happens with me and I get sick. And I'm assuming that somebody had told him that I got sick. And actually 2 of my girlfriends called him on the phone. And I heard that the conversation wasn't very pleasant.
Good.
Right, as it shouldn't have been. And so, without really wanting to go too deep into all of this stuff with him, because that's really not relevant at the time. But, the whole illness thing. And so when you fast forward to me being in California, now I have to work. I'm trying to get my life together. I knew that I was going to get fired from this job at the movies. I'm going to the movies.
Indeed.
Knew it was. They was going to find out. But I wasn't ready to work, but I had to make money. I did not have a choice. And then, of course, they called me in and said, "You are fired." I was like, "I am." I was thinking, well, you kind of late, but all right.
Thank you for the time you did give me.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Because I knew it was going to eventually come, and I knew that I wasn't ready. But sometimes you pushing yourself. And, so I was out of work for a few weeks or so, and I ended up getting a job working in sales. And it was a company that had an office here in Dallas. Now, mind you, when I got sick here in Dallas, I had a full apartment. And my girlfriend Raina's mom was Jehovah's Witness and was going door to door, what have you, and noticed that they had put an eviction notice on my door because I was gone. Didn't nobody think about when you get in a coma, go to the hospital, something.
The Jehovah's Witness is the one who alerted.
It was Raina's mother. That
I'm just saying the irony of it all.
It was Raina's mom.
You don't see it happening.
And they had to go move.
It's a movie.
They had to move all of my stuff. I was in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this. I have had the best friends that have been family. And for Raina you pack up all of my stuff, my whole apartment, and put everything in storage. And I will say, when I was in California, after I got sick, there was always something that I felt like was missing here.
Mm-hmm.
It was like there was I had unfinished business in Dallas.
Yeah.
And so when I started working at the company that had the company here in Dallas, it was like I was in sales, and I said to someone like, I would love to maybe go back to Dallas. Although it was kind of clicking a little bit, but something was just missing. Mm-hmm. And I remember the guy telling us, he was like, well, if you do top of sales or something, we can consider it. And sure enough, a couple of months later, I did, and I asked for a transfer. So that's actually how I got back here, because I was doing something, like I just knew that I needed to do something. It was a company where I was selling commercial cleaning. Like I would go in the building, they would send me on these appointments where I had to go tell you like how much it was going to cost to burnish the floor, all that kind of stuff, something that, but once again, I said, I was like, oh, can I help plan the holiday party? So it was kind of starting from there. I got another job working in sales, and I was working for Trader Publication at the time doing computer ads. And I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm supposed to be doing this. Like I kept thinking, okay, God, thank you. You brought me from this illness. My daughter is intact. She's about 5 at the time. I'm back in Dallas. I remember coming back here when I transferred. The first thing I did, I cried when I opened up storage because all my stuff was still here. Because we moved to LA pretty much with nothing, with just really what was in a suitcase. Mm-hmm. And I'm in this apartment and I'm just sitting here like, what am I supposed to be doing? And I said, if God has really given me this opportunity at the second part of my life, because if I could come back from where I have been, what am I supposed to do? And it ain't supposed to be doing no computer ads for sure. So I said, I think I want to plan events just like that. And I made a list of 10 places I wanted to work. And it was some hotels, because I would watch stuff on TV like, that wedding show or something like that. And I knew I liked sports. Like college football is my jam. Like this weekend is Labor Day weekend. I will be watching, College Game Day, Lee Corso's going to be retiring. It's and I will be at the TV all weekend. And I knew I love sports.
And your happy place.
Yeah. Oh my God. And and college is just totally it. And I made a list of 10 places I wanted to work. It was some luxury hotels, like the Rangers, the Dallas Cowboys, probably the Mavericks. I was just picking teams that were here. But this is before we had you could email people and be like, hey, we were still sending stuff in the mail. So I made my resume into an invitation, like a wedding invitation, because I had always made invitations for friends, and I would decorate certain things. My friend Kathy, who's my lifelong friend Kathy, I was her wedding planner. We didn't know I could do a wedding planning, but I did it. They had gotten married right before I did. So I would always I was the girlfriend that helps you with your baby shower or your wedding or something. So I knew I could do something, but I didn't know people really got paid for it.
Like it's a job.
Yeah, they could do it. And I had an interview at a hotel, and I didn't have what they call front of house experience. That's or back, where I could come in as a client and tell you, well, my table's over here, but I didn't know the size of the tables or, the measurements or all those things. And I did get a call from Sports Service, which is a hospitality company at the ballpark in Arlington at the time, which is now across from Globe Life. And it was for a private events coordinator. And a coordinator is the entry-level job you get in events.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 36. I had a 5-year-old. And the offer letter, I went to this interview, and I'm like, well, should I do it? What do I do? Because I'm working at a job that's a salary commission. Now, the offer letter said $12 an hour.
Mm-mm.
And I was like, well, 12, what am I going to do?
Mm-mm.
And I did it. I was working 2 jobs. I worked at Davis Bridal because I really love weddings. And I had a 5-year-old, but at $12 an hour, my car got repossessed in the parking lot. Because what was I going to be able to do?
At work?
Yeah, it was at work. No, yeah, they came got it at work, I'm pretty sure. My electricity got cut off at least twice with the time I was working at the ballpark. But to make extra money, there was a guy there named Ken Nettles. Ken was from LA. And people from LA, we out here, you like, okay, we had the whole hey vibe.
Mm-hmm.
He was the manager of Suite. So he said, well, why don't you come and work with me, to make extra money in my department after your shifts are over or what have you. So I had to go work as a suite attendant, which has all come to fruition now on this side of it, right? So I could work as a suite attendant. They wear a uniform, but not me. I had a scarf around my neck. I put my earrings on. I was laid as a sport attendant. He said, boo, you got to take all that off. I was like, wait, what?
Right. I need to be cute now.
Right, excuse me. But that extra money really helped. And, I was a single mom at the time. And I had to end up quitting Davis Bridal because my daughter was getting in trouble at school. Because what happened was, if you work in 2 jobs, somebody's got to take suffer. And it's got to be the 5-year-old at the time. And, the one thing that I will say is I started off doing what the most entry-level job that you can do in events, and I loved it. And it was something where I couldn't imagine, I got paid for stuff like this, right? And at the time, we had got this flyer, because I was also living in Arlington, that they were going to be building this new stadium across the street for Dallas Cowboys. And I was like, wow, that's really exciting. And I did this job for about a year, and I had actually coordinated somebody's wedding. Somebody met me, my girlfriend Tiffany. I met Tiffany at work. She was on the site visit. And I was like, well, I was selling the wedding. Didn't even know I was doing what I was doing. But it was so natural to me to be in this element, because I only really did payroll. I didn't really work game days unless I worked with Ken. And it was just something that was missing. And it was a chef in the kitchen. His name was Chef Barron. May he rest in peace. Chef Barron said, baby, he had this nice gold tooth right in the front. He did. And he said, baby, you are so talented. You need to do this all the time. And I said, well, Chef Barron, the hotels told me that I wasn't qualified. He said, I'm going to tell you what to say. And he talked to me about how to create a banquet event order, because we didn't do those at the ballpark. And basically, it's the blueprint of how you do an event. And when he kind of told me how to do it, and I did it again, I made another list of 10 places I wanted to work. And I was applying online, and I interviewed with the hotel, the Radisson, which is now the Beeman on 75.
Which is where you were when I met you.
He was.
And you were just as proud.
Oh, my God.
Oh, you loved it. You were in your happy place.
I did, because there, I was a social catering manager. I did weddings. I did all social events. And I was in my element at that point.
And you would just light up talking about all the details, all the table settings and the forks that you used and the colors. And it was just like, is it really that serious? But for you,
Yeah, I mean,
because that you were in your superpower.
I was. I mean, at the time, and the growth that I had from knowing where I had, started, and not even knowing that what was going to open up before me as I grew through that too. Because after doing that, when I worked at the Radisson, I became a certified wedding planner. I actually went to RGM and did it in trade. I asked the association that they could have their meeting at the hotel if they would train me along with their, people in the class, which they did. I would go to association meetings, and I was a student of the game. Like I could walk in somewhere and be like, wow, like every little detail would just excite me. And that's what you should have when you work. And so a lot of times when I talk to people about work, it's okay if you're 25 and you don't get it. It's okay if you're 32 and you don't get it. Sometimes it's going to click. Like I didn't go to law school to become a lawyer. I went to college. I accomplished what I was supposed to. But, yes, that I think I was going to be on camera and write these long articles. And, yeah, I did. But sometimes it's the hidden talents that are somewhere that you just didn't know that you had that kind of come up. And so, they let me be my own thing. I would design, the tablescapes and all I was so excited about stuff. And then.
So, okay. You go by stuff so fast, Monique. But some things just need to be like, you just need to sit with it for a second, because there are so many people right now. Like we're in a season where over 300,000 Black women have lost their jobs.
Yeah.
And before that even happened, as a mother of a young adult, a lot of times when a kid is 20 something, 30 something, not kid, but a young woman or young person, they feel like they can't start over, or they gotta, the world is over if they have to make a shift. So when you talk about not just focusing on the money, but focusing on what really motivates you internally, what turns you on, what you light up about, and what you're passionate about, and at least giving yourself a chance, giving yourself permission to take a chance on what really lights you up. And to somebody like me, okay, the fork is nice, but to you it's like, no, it has to be the right fork and the right napkin, and the placements need to be, and it does something for you. And that's really where the win is, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, and I think I was always excited by it, like even the small things, and it wasn't really until I think as I kept learning, because the more, even now, like if I see stuff on TV or you walk in a room, like I notice so many things, like the details 100% matter to me. And I think what initially happened is that even my time at the hotel, when I went to go work at the DMA, everything changed my life. Like when I literally.
What's the DMA for those who don't know?
It's the Dallas Museum of Art. So as my time when I worked at the Radisson, I was going to association meetings, and I went to one of it was like a special events association, and Todd Fiskus from Todd Events was speaking, and he was talking about like the future of like LED lighting or something crazy, but he was so like fabulous. Like I think they had this display of like these LED like bars or something, and yeah, I was totally into that. And so I wrote him a note, and I was like, hey, you are great speaking. I would love to hopefully meet you one day, blah blah blah. Send this note. So fast forward, remember I told you, I don't even know if I've ever really applied for a job that was available. I knew that it was time for me to leave because I had really grown as much as I was going to grow there. And they were building the Ritz-Carlton here in Dallas. And I had made a list of 10 places I wanted to work yet again. I thought, okay, I worked in weddings. I kind of know some stuff. Yeah, the Radisson may not be like a 4 or 5 star, but I knew service. I was manager of the quarter. Like, I got this right. So I applied and I made a list. The DMA was one of them because I knew they did weddings. Because what I did know that I love weddings, love social stuff. And Ritz-Carlton, whatever. I got a call from the Ritz-Carlton, went down there for some interviews. I went through the process. And when I met the general manager, he was really nasty to me at the time because he had asked me something about traveling abroad. And he wanted to know, had I done that before? I was like, no. And he said, well, how will you be able to relate? And I was like, oh, I interviewed at the Adolphus. And I remember the adult was telling me she thought I was great, but I wasn't as professional as they would like because I didn't wear a monochrome suit. Like I had a jacket on, but I had a light skirt on. It didn't match. And if you were that petty, okay, wasn't supposed to work there either. Got this, so made a list of places I wanted to work. I made it once again my resume. I don't even know what I did, but what I do know is that if I do handwrite something, most people will open it because of my handwriting. And at the time, Sodexo had just taken over at the Dallas Museum of Art, their new account, and they had the general manager, vice president, senior VP were all women that worked for the company. They had all moved. They were from Chicago, so they had landed in Dallas and in the South, with a whole different breed. They were like, okay. And she opens this envelope. I get this interview. I'll go down there for an interview, and they took me on a tour. They were doing this luncheon. They were serving vichyssoise, and the table linen was.
I'm sorry,
impeccable.
they were doing serving butt.
I don't even know. It's cold soup. Whatever.
Okay, thank you.
And I walk in, and I'm like, oh yeah, I pray I get this one because this is where I'm supposed to be. And sure enough, I get this job as the catering manager working at the Dallas Museum of Art. It was the Week of Art Ball, which is one of the the top galas of the year here in Dallas. And lo and behold, who was walking down the street, who's walking down the corridor fixing these flowers is Todd Fiskus. And I was like, oh my God, it's him. And so I walk, and because it's trees of peonies and the linens and satin everywhere where it was. So I went from, I could plan an event, somebody spending 20 grand on an event, which is a lot of money to most people. But this was a whole new level because not only it was, these were people that were extremely wealthy that were having an event. It was, a fundraiser. And I saw Todd, and he was so gracious to me. And I had a camera. I said, sir, would you mind if I take some pictures? Because I told you I'm just a student of whatever. He said, yes, baby, go ahead and do that. And I'm taking these photographs, and I go back in the office, and I tell my boss, I'm like, oh my God, I would love to help plan this. And I ended up planning 5 with Todd, over the years that I had spent there. And
let me just tell y'all this. When Monique's journey elevated, she also elevated her friends. So we would get to go to the DMA, and we would go to jazz night on Thursdays, and so we got to live vicariously through you. And because we never got to see her. Let's just also say that part because she loves working so much. And that the only time we could really spend time together is if we came to one of your events.
That's true. Yeah. And it's crazy because you're right. There is where it was more confirmation that's where I was supposed to be. Because anytime you feel like you're not necessarily working, and I worked in an environment where, number one, people didn't expect to see somebody look like me, because, I remember people calling on the phone. I'll talk to you about, your event and how much it was going to cost. And then, a set appointment to come in. And at the time, somebody that worked for me was Caucasian, and we would go on the site visits together, and they would immediately shake her hand first, thinking it was her that they talked to on the phone. So not only did I have to really kind of establish myself because being a woman of color that were doing events at this high level, I've always been adamant that your reputation precedes you. It's all that I have at the end of the day, whether I work where I am now or whether I worked before. If you talk to any of my colleagues and you put my name there, and people like put respect in my name. I mean, that could be a cliche. My reputation is all that I have professionally. And I took a lot of pride in that. And so at the time, when I worked at the museum, our banquet manager was French. So I learned it was like being in food event college. And that experience to me holds most dear because it was the foundation of where I went next. Because not only when I talk about Todd Fiskus and Todd events, who was a huge muse and mentor to me, even to this day. Like when I see him, it's electric, 1000%. But he was also, he personally planned all the events for the Jones family, for the Dallas Cowboys. And so fast forward, as I kind of went through this rest of the career, I left the DMA to go to the Jewel, and I went to the Jewel, and my job got eliminated after 9 months. And I sent this text message to Randy that works for Todd that said, hey, my job's been eliminated. Let me know if you hear of anything. And she said, hey, Todd, the Cowboys have asked Todd if he knows anyone they're looking for a director of catering. Send me your resume. So I did. And Fast forward 230 applicants later, Todd gives my resume to somebody who works with the Cowboys. They give it to Legends. I go on this interview, and at the time, you talking about we're hitting another low because my job gets eliminated. My daughter is 15 at the time, and I don't saving money has never really been the best thing that I knew how to do. So, I'm a single parent. I live paycheck to paycheck, and when you don't have one, you're now like, what's going to happen? Back is totally up against the wall. 100%. And I go on these, I'm starting to interview now. And here I am, I had 9 interviews. I met with 9 people, 2 months. It's deadhead of summer. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I'm dating at the time. He lives in Atlanta. I'm like, well, we're going to have to move to Atlanta. I don't know what's going to happen. And I am on, at the time, I-30. I go on this interview, number one, and I get to the point where it's the final 2. And the director of HR, she's like, they can't tell you they rooting for you, but she was a little brown too, and and she was like, "Girl, it's you and somebody else." And she said, "Girl," I was like, "Okay." And I get this phone call, and I was driving on I-30 under Legends Way at the time, because Legends Way was now turned to AT&T Way, but it used to be called Legends Way. And the phone rings. I kid you not, and it was Monica Brooks on the phone, and she said, "Monique, we want to offer you the job. When can you start?" And I said, "Tomorrow." I had to wait like 2 days, but I was like,
"Did you sleep?"
Yeah, and it changed my life, and everything I knew about fine dining when I worked baseball, give or take, it all kind of came into fruition. And at the time, I would cry for the first couple of months when I would drive to work. You remember, I started off at the ballpark across the street, entry level, 36 years old, not knowing my career was going to go, to now they build this amazing stadium across the street with all the reputation and brand identity that the Dallas Cowboys have. And I literally am going to direct events and manage right across the street from where I got started.
$12 an hour.
And I never 1000% have taken my job, this responsibility, the people that work for me for granted, because I've always remembered that I used to stand in the parking lot and look at the ballpark every day before I walked in the building. When I would walk across the Star, when nobody was in the building, primarily when it was quiet, I've never not appreciated a day, because it was all confirmation. And so to me, I have a responsibility, primarily to the next 36-year-old or to the 20-year-old that's out of college, to make sure that I create a pathway not only for people in general, but all the entry-level people that work for me now. We, once a year we go through, these college grads come in, I want to work in sports. Well, why do you want to work in sports? I'm a huge fan. Okay, well, you're only going to work on food service if you work here. Like, tell me what you really want to do. And so I take a lot of pride in every person that has really worked for me on this big coaching tree. I had dinner with Chastity earlier this week, who is, over employee engagement for Louis Vuitton right now. Cicely is actually about to take a job directing the events at the new Anaheim Ducks sports complex. Daniela is overseeing events at Capital One basketball in Washington, D.C.
These are all your mentees.
Every last person that has really worked for me. Amani was my intern, and she's directing she actually took my old job working for me. She's my director of catering at the Star. So I have a sense of responsibility for not only them as people, but of knowing that, I am queen. I am not the easiest person to an extent. And it's weird because Amani said,
"What do you mean?
Amani said,
whatever could you be saying?"
It was funny because I think she said something like, "Not people are scared of you." No, wasn't scared, but she said, "We just don't want to disappoint you, because as hard as I can go, and that I can go there, good, it's for a reason." But like I will tell people, like, I also work for an organization where everything starts here. And if some people can't do it, we've had some people that are like, "Oh yeah, this is a lot for me. I can't hang." No problem. I wish you well. Or, the door is always open. I know when people want to go through a career transition. I had somebody walk in the door and I'm like, "Okay, well, what do you want to do?" And then, okay, well, let me connect you with somebody that I know that can help you, because I don't bring you here to keep you. I remember, why would we do that? We're supposed to grow up. If we know if there's not really an avenue or something within our organization to help you grow, let me make a phone call for you to see where you can grow, maybe with someone else, or how can I help you? Let me look at your resume and let me make sure that you're saying all the right things, or your resume is 4 pages long. People, like, colleges are not preparing people right now. Like, the amount of resumes that I get of people who got their face on them and they're 3 pages long, I don't read all of that. Like, where's the substance behind a lot of that? And so,
What are you looking for in an employee?
you know what? So most of the people I tell people, like, most people that reach out to me on LinkedIn, I'll give you 30 minutes. And anybody would tell you that. And I probably spend more time with people that are so shocked that I'm approachable, because I thought everybody did that. I thought when somebody was like, "Oh, I see your work out there. I really admire you. Whatever. Okay, well, just let's set something up." I don't know. I thought, because I really feel like, why would I have gotten to a point where I've gotten so elevated in my job that I didn't have time for people? Because what was the point?
Well, there's a scripture that says, if you're faithful over few things, I'll make you ruler over many.
Oh, you always be doing the good stuff.
Yeah. And
how do you remember that?
Well, because I take it to heart, just like you do.
Right. Okay.
And so the things that you care about,
yeah,
you remember.
Yeah.
And so I say all that to say, you don't forget where you came from. You do remember those crossroads, those low places, and how it was preparation for you, how people treated you and made you feel. And so I know that all of your service workers, all of your line workers, you know their names.
Absolutely.
You have relationships with them. You treat everybody with respect, and you value them. You have relationships with your people. And so it says a lot about you, but I know your journey is also what shaped you. And other people may not know your why, but you know your why.
We just took 80 people to the Cowboys game last week. I mean, and I said this, so where we are at the headquarters, we see the team every day. The head, all leadership, executive, all the people that work for the Cowboys. So our culinary staff, our tourist team, they don't go to the games. And I said, okay, I went to the Cowboys and I said, would you mind, us taking our whole team to the preseason games? And we did it for I think this is our 3rd year in a row. And he was like, absolutely, great idea. Because I wanted to be the general manager that I never had, 100%. And I really felt like, because I say I value you, and even the stuff that is going on right now in our climate, in our world. And I have a large group of people that work for me that are from Venezuela. And if you kind of know what's going on, how they're being treated primarily in this country and what's going on in their country. And I remember when they had some election, I've never lived in Venezuela before, but I remember them talking about it, and people were really hurt about what the results were. And I handwrote a note to every person on my staff that was from Venezuela, because I wanted them to know. And some of them, our communication is just body language, because in the main, that's really but I am empathetic for that. And when we now are going through this new climate with this whole, ICE, first thing I did was bring one of the chefs in the office that is from Venezuela. And I said, tell me what's happening. Like, what are you guys talking about? What's happening? Like, and how can I help? And what do I do? Because, I am a person of color. It's never going to go away. And I know how it's like for people to be treated, but, to be targeted, and for people to be insensitive. And, and knowing that, we, yes, can protect you when you're in the building, but what happens when you're not in the building? And so for me, I carry that weight on me. And I think that's kind of been a lot of things that worry me, because I worry about the people, because I don't want them to be sad or displaced or feel discriminated when they are out of this building, of how what we're supposed to do as caring as people. And so for me, when we recognize every time we have a milestone, if somebody meets a goal, we have like a goal chain, and it's a big dollar sign, but it's a goal chain, meaning GOAL, goal chain. And, the managers and the directors and people that are working for me, like, they hit things out of the ballpark. Like, I had to learn yesterday, we had an event that Amani did, and, they know I'm on my way. So, and I walked in and I said, I didn't have to really change anything. because they wait for me to get there. Like, oh, here comes Devil Wears Prada. I love her.
Right. That's a compliment.
Oh my God, I love that lady. I want to be Miranda so bad. And I didn't have a lot to change. And a lot of times, I'm a little bit more hands off. Like most people, when you see this, that worked for me in the beginning, yeah, I mean, I might have not really micromanaged, but I put my eye on it because a few things. Number one, you got to remember who I am and what I look like in this work environment. So we can't mess up at all because we means you. And
do you think Black women are harder to work for?
So I've always really been some jobs where I worked where I was the only one. Now, when I started working other places where I saw other people, but I do think and have the people that have to work together. I don't really think that you're really hard to work for. I think if you really understand the assignment of what is expected, what's expected of me is going to be totally different what's expected of somebody else. So what I do know is, with that said, I take things very seriously to heart. So I don't think it's really we're more difficult or harder to work for. I think if you understand the assignment of what you're supposed to be doing, I think you just have to be more conscious of it.
The stakes are higher.
Yeah, exactly. And so, men are different because, a male and a male, yeah, Black men, when they have to go to work, but you're actually a male too. Us, it's like, okay, I'm a woman. I work in hospitality. If you look up the food chain of the companies that you work for that are in hospitality, not a lot of women at all. And then when you get up and you say, okay, now if you see men sprinkled in there, they probably have some men sprinkled in there, but not a lot of females. So then you mix it with both. I also know what I carry that too. So, I have to really remember, for me, I was 36 when I started, so I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball of now. Most, I was managed by people that were younger than me too. And they were.
How hard was that?
I got called vintage once or twice, which is fine. Whatever. But, it's the wisdom.
But ageism is real.
Oh, it is.
And I think a lot of people are about to start experiencing. I know I've experienced it.
But the problem is, like yesterday, I told somebody, show me Canva really quick. Because those are certain things where we age ourselves. But if you are one of those ones, I have a girlfriend, girl, I don't really like the computer. That's going to be you. Because you're going to have to keep up with it. If AI and ChatGPT ain't something you can talk about now, get with it. Because unfortunately, I got to work. College was expensive to help my daughter go to school, or life was expensive. So I'm not going to be, I'm not in an environment where early retirement, or I work for a pension or somewhere for a long time where I can retire early. I got to roll till I can't. And so, which is fine. However, you age yourself out. Now I might not be I don't go out and never really have been social with people that I work with because I've always been a lot older than everybody else, which, which I understand that. But you're right. Ageism is real. So in thinking about when you got to do a career transition, like what happens now when you were asking what I look for, and when we interview people, we have interviewed people who are in career shifts. And when I tell somebody, oh, that just got out of college, and I see somebody that's a little bit older, but I also have to think too, depending on what job you have, what it's going to be like for you to be in the team environment. So sometimes
it has to be a good fit.
They have to, because they work enough hours on top of each other to know that if they don't really have good camaraderie as a team, and you got somebody that's like mother henning you to do something, then it may not necessarily really work too. So, but it depends on where kind of role that they're interviewing with. So, we hire a lot of people that are second careers, retirement, that work in tours, or you'll find someone came to me the other day. She's interested in wanting to know how to do events. So I'm going to have her shadow the events team. Because to me, if you're in the building, you work for me already. If you say, okay, I want to do something else, I'm going to make it happen. And I will expect every director to do it. In fact, I had a conversation with them yesterday. Like, okay, who is your number 2 if you go on vacation? And who the hell going to be here when I win the lottery and I'm sharing my millions with everybody? What are we leaving behind? That kind of thing. And so, because I think you can't just say you can't hold it in and you just don't really share your gifts and talents with other people. I think you have an obligation, and I know for me, to really teach and be available and open to make sure that people that work for you know that they have an opportunity. Because look at me, I literally started off doing something that was totally not in my thought process to now. And if I was never exposed to it, if Ken would have never let me be a sweets attendant, or or me just really taking the opportunity, taking the chance, then where would I really be at this point, you know? And, and I'm an unorthodox GM. Like a lot of people that work for me, like I didn't know taking this general manager job that I had to care about hot dogs and popcorn. And the first time we had a line in concessions, I'm like, there's a line over here. And they were like, well, people stand in line at concessions when they get food at like high school football games. I'm like, oh, okay. Or, one of our highlight events we did this year, we did the Dallas Open. Like we bought tennis to Frisco. We literally took the whole indoor field and made it a tennis, professional tennis. And so I said to everybody, well, we got to learn tennis now because we're football people. So we had the assignment. All the directors watched Point Break on Netflix. We had to learn some of the players' names. We had tennis school. We had the tennis people come and teach us tennis because I wanted to know. I had a tennis skirt because I was going to be, the outfit was going to be there.
I saw it on social media.
Yeah. The outfit was going to be there. We had to study. And so to do that, but you have to just kind of be open to like not be so closed off. And, and there's some mistakes that I have made. And I'm one to tell me like, if, let's all have an opinion about something and then I have to really meet you in the middle. I'm not really I don't want to be like, it's my way or no way at all. Some points I have to really make a decision what's good for the company overall where I have to make hard decisions. But for the most part, the leadership team has given me so much ease. I have a lot more time. Like it's really weird. I tell people sometimes being general manager is a little boring because I'm not as hands-on because I have to trust the people that now work for me.
Have you learned to do that?
Oh, 100%. Like yesterday when I show up to an event and it's 30 minutes before it starts, that's totally trusting you. 100%. Or I don't go in the kitchen and get on the chef all the time. It's funny because he said, Monique, I know you. The tea sandwiches are cut perfectly in a nice bite size. Thank you. Because I will go and like, what do you hate me? Like I had to take 3 bites for this and my hands are going to get dirty. He was like, okay, I got it. And so, and I'm lucky that, now I think 9 people have been promoted since I've been there, giving them opportunities to, that's what I'm there for. I'm the culture that he said, I want you to be a culture changer when you come here. Noted. That's what I do.
So as we come to a close, I have just a couple questions.
Right. So look at this. This is long, huh?
Girl, it's good. I want to know quickly.
Don't be trying to say quickly. You the one who tell me I'm going to talk. Right.
What's been your highlight in terms of an event that you've been over? Secondly, I want to know what's your superpower. And then thirdly, I want you to leave an encouraging word for somebody like you who right now they don't know how they're going to put food on their table after having a career, but now they don't.
So my favorite event, there's actually really 2. I had always wanted to work Super Bowl. And when I was in LA, we opened up SoFi and Super Bowl was the second year that we worked. And I didn't really know the capacity of always really wanted to work Super Bowl, but having to did the NFL draft out here when we did it in 2018 kind of prepared me of working with the staff from the NFL. So I would say Super Bowl was kind of one of those highlights of, and I think just from the magnitude of it being Super Bowl, I think with it being West Coast, I think with Dre, the ding, 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 like that just it gave me chills every time they went to practice. And then we were actually live and standing on the turf with the confetti flying down and me not even being obviously the Rams and Chargers. I had 2 teams that played in SoFi and the Rams winning. And, and it was weird because I kind of felt like I never knew I was coming back to Dallas. So I felt like I was cheating a little bit on my friends that worked out here, but it was such a gratifying experience. So that was one of them. And I think for me, honestly, the tennis, when what we accomplished to do the Dallas Open and we did 15 days of catering 12 hours a day, taking care of the tennis tournament, not knowing tennis and knowing that I had a whole building of people I had to teach tennis to, that was most definitely a highlight for me as well. And I have a really bad memory. So what was the second thing? My superpower.
Look now, you know menopause,
Right.
child.
So
Yeah.
I would say my daughter was always the reason for it. I had to have superpowers because I had to really set an example for her. I got divorced when she was 1. I get sick when she's 3. From 3 to 18 or 19, I was kind of growing within myself. After this whole experience of me getting sick, the whole dating thing around her was not really very what I really wanted to do, because I really focused a lot on just making sure that I would be the best example of her being able to see what it was like to work hard. And so explaining to her also too, even with Santa Claus was real, but the moms, I had to write him a check. I had to go to work and send Santa Claus money to get the stuff. So he was never going to get all the credit, but making sure she had the childhood, but making sure she also saw that why I had to work hard the way that I had. And my superpower, I think, was primarily really the people in my life. There was no way that I would have been able to grow in my career had it not been for my girlfriend, Raina, who basically took Riley everywhere when I was at the hotels working every Saturday, trying to build myself in this industry. Or when I got sick and I had, not only my family, obviously, who had really there to help me, but, when I lived in somebody's house with a twin bed with my daughter, and you didn't charge me rent, and you taught me how to drive a car again, and I'm not even, blood related to you. So the superpower primarily had always really been not the people, but the determination to make sure. And I know you asked me, like, if somebody, their back is up against the wall, about what would they do. I did a lot of jobs I didn't want to do, but I had to be sure, I had to make sure that I had a mouth to feed. When I worked at David's Bridal and somebody's, butt is in my face and I'm helping you put your bustle on, but I needed that extra money. Or when I had to work suites, when I was working 2 jobs at the time. And there were some things that I know that I didn't want to do, but I really had to do. And, but knowing that, once I came from being sick to knowing that where I had to be, and I'm not perfect by any means, and my peace of mind, I think, has always just really been important for me. Like when I go home at night, and some days I have cried, because I've maybe overspent and needed some money, need whatever, but God has never left me uncovered. And so there's always been something else out there. And I think that, knowing that, when I said broken crayons can still color, not everybody wants to be an event planner or what have it may be, but if it's something where, there's where you can just, I think, accept and think about, like, what is going to make you happy. And like, and there's no disrespect to people who take jobs that may be off, that are not something that you may have not planned to do, because you can always grow at that. Like, even when people have these standards where I only want to be around people who do this, that, and the other, I don't, college is not necessarily always the answer. Doesn't make you the smartest, because life skills are things that you have that are applied to you with experience as well too. Now, the basis of kind of how things go, of like what's the core to like where you are and the experience that you need is kind of really within you. And so I know people now, it's been 7, 8 months that looking for work, and it's really, and right now it's it's difficult. And I don't know if I have all the answers, because, you telling people to be patient, things will come. But whether you got to get out and hustle or drive an Uber, because listen, I had another mouth to feed. So a lot of times, and it's weird, because when I think about now, I really wish I could do something, it's not because I can't, or I know I need to modify, like, how you are with, we got to be sharing these $300 bottle of perfumes, and is that really necessary? But I also know that I work really hard, and I remember when it was things that I could not do because I had to take care of someone who's completely independent. Now, like the woman that I wanted to be, that I wanted my daughter to see, is how she is developing now. She goes to college, gets out in 4 years, gets a job, extremely responsible, financially. She's totally where she needs to be at 28, and level-headed. At her age, I was out blowing all my money, looking so cute. She will not go to a mall. She's weird. But that's her. But everything that I did primarily was I wanted to set an example for her. And so if I did that, that would be my superpower. And That's right.
So this is my last question because you know how I am about self-care. What does self-care look like for you,
I knew you
Monique?
was gonna say that. You know what self-care was? Let me tell you, I've been self-caring it now because I get on an airplane. I was gone for 3 weeks. I had went to a conference in Mexico. I went back to California to see, some friends at SoFi. I hadn't been to the stadium. I went to my first first NFL game at the stadium as a fan. It was weird. I went to Vegas for my birthday. Self-care is just really slowing it down for me now. Honestly, Pilates. I mean, I lost 55 pounds. Self-care is getting up at 4:30 in the morning, being in class at 6 for 5 days a week. So I've gotten a lot
I
better.
remember when we had that conversation.
Yeah.
I was like, girl, go to Pilates.
Mhm.
It'll change your life. Look, you go now more than I ever
I did.
have.
Yeah, self-care is letting his hair turn gray and owning it. And that was really
Which looks
difficult.
fabulous,
Thank
by the
you.
way.
That was really difficult for me.
Do you find, though, once you own where you are and you decide to be authentic, that it actually, like, it literally looks better on you?
When I was actually scared.
Mhm.
I was, because I was dyeing my roots every 2 weeks. Like, let me dye, and it was weird. And I was scared when I was trying to get, and then I got blonde braids, and it was like mixed the hair. And then one day I was like, okay, let me do it. And it wasn't until I got my hair braided with the gray hair, because the braider was like, let's just do it. And I was really scared, and he called me on FaceTime, and he looked at me. He said, "I like your hair." I was like, "What?" And then I thought I was
you're
cute.
he?
Yeah, I thought
Mhm.
I was cute after that. I was like, "I like your hair." And it's when other women see me, they're like, "Girl, you are so brave." Yeah, I mean, but it's liberating just a little bit. So yeah, that's it.
So let me say this to you. I said it in the beginning of this conversation, but I want to just say thank you for being my first friend.
Oh yeah, I got some stories about that.
Ooh-wee. Thank you for being my first friend in Dallas. Okay, since you got a funny story you want to tell, Monique? What's your funny dear story?
Let me just tell you that you had got this weave and you could not get all the hair, the net.
Somebody that you recommended, by the way.
Well, it wasn't her fault. It was your fault for you probably let the weave in for like longer than you needed to. And the hair was like matted and you could not get them braids out. And we came over to that apartment. And there's one thing when you like, okay, I got to take the rest of this weave out. You had on a hat. And when I walked in the door, you took that hat off and you looked like Miss Seeley from Bright Color Purple. And it was like this. And you trying not to laugh. And you trying not to laugh. And you just like, I'm like, okay. And but yeah, that part.
And you brought your daughter there who did not help the situation.
Right, exactly. And all we had was just story after story about you and that hair. So needless to say, I don't even think you had a weave since. But don't because that's
not my calling.
When you took that hat off, and you had left the pixies where they was like this. Like, what are we doing?
Silly. I always want to be in the color purple. And there you go. I love you, friend.
I love you back, lover.
You are my lover. That's our little secret name for each other. Did y'all enjoy that conversation? I know I did. Let me tell you what my takeaway is from Monique. Not only is she dynamic, funny, fun, powerful in more than one way, and an amazing friend who is full of empathy. But my takeaway in our conversation today is storms don't come to blow you away. Storms come to blow away all the things you don't need so that you can rebuild and rebuild knowing what you're made of. Sometimes it takes a storm to find out who you really are. Sometimes it takes a storm to blow away all the things that distract you that you don't need to show you who you are and who you are when your back is up against the wall. Nobody wants to be tested. We just want the testimony. But the test is to reveal you to you. And when you discover, or when you're willing to discover who you are, regardless of the storm that comes, you're going to pass that test. And when the storm is over, the sun will shine. Hey y'all, it's your girl Dia Direct. Welcome back to the Superpower Podcast. Make sure you tell your friends and your friend's friend to tap in, subscribe to the Superpower Podcast on Dia Direct TV on YouTube. That's DEYA Direct TV.